live. I'll write it and we'll do it live. And thing sucks.
Don't you know, pump it up. You got to pump it up. Don't you know, pump it up.
Team right here.
You got to pump it up. Don't you know, pump it up. You got to pump it up. Don't you know, pump it up. You got to pump it up. Don't you know, pump it up. You got to pump it up. Don't you know, pump it up. You got to pump it up. Don't you know, pump it up.
Back on a Monday. Trent, how you doing? How you doing over there?
I'm just celebrating my my big Vikings win from yesterday. Were those 49ers?
We had a long conversation about adult men wearing jerseys and how difficult it is to do. Trent, obviously, he could have shown up in a Michigan jersey today, right? He could have been repping the maize and blue, but he shows up in the purple and I don't know what.
Absolutely purple and gold, but absolutely nobody gave the Vikings a chance to beat the Niners on Sunday, other than myself. So I'm celebrating the big win. Everybody thought Michigan was going to beat Arkansas State, so it wasn't that big of a win.
I'm surprised that's not a Sam Darnold jersey. Didn't he look? He looked a little bit. Yeah. I think he looked decent, right? He looked all right. CJ saying, "Don't."
Whoa!
49ers guy. You just got to watch it, Trent. See, you're starting to cross enemy lines here when you get into the NFL, and it could create some more.
All I'm saying is Sam Darnold's better than Brock Purdy right now.
Oh boy,
that's basically what it is.
I mean, insulting, but it may be factual as well. Lydia, good to see you. Ricky from the Facebook page, appreciate having you here. And then, as always, CJ, good to see you. Look, we can't talk about the NFL. We just can't do it. I understand, Trent, you're excited about where the Vikings are at, but we got to talk Michigan football. Obviously, last Saturday, Michigan defeated Arkansas State, won by a score of 28-18. Dude, it did not take long for this Michigan fan base to be just pressing the panic button. Sky is falling. It took 3 weeks into the 2024 season before I first saw somebody suggest we got to get rid of Sharon Moore. Got to get rid of him. Time to let him go. That is where we are at now within this Michigan fan base. The Wolverines are 2-1. Haven't looked great through 3 weeks. Obviously, you lose to Texas in week 2. That one was a pretty convincing loss for Michigan. But Texas right now is the number 1 team in the country, and I'd venture to say they should probably be the favorite along with Ohio State. But Ohio State hasn't played anybody. But Texas has got to be a favorite to win the national championship, right? Like that was Michigan in week 2 going up against who I believe is the favorite to win the national championship. Trent, I know that a lot of people in the fan base are freaking out and pushing the panic button. Where are you at on this team after 3 weeks?
I'm definitely not as high on Michigan as what I was going into the season.
Why don't you tell them what you told me in the car? I asked you, I said, look, you started at 10-2, you moved to 9-3. I asked you if you were still at 9-3. What did you tell me? What did you tell me? Go ahead.
Absolutely. I said absolutely 9-3 until
You're a liar. Trent's a liar. He's lying to you, folks. He is not at 9-3. Tell the people the truth.
I mean, like I told you in text, I could see this ranging anywhere from 6-6 to 9-3. You don't know what you're going to get out of Michigan week to week. The passing game still is not good. The defense, while I don't think the final score was indicative of how Michigan dominated the game, the defense still gives up too many chunk plays. I know Arkansas State scored twice against Michigan's third string defenders, but still, I mean, you don't know what you really got. You have tough games coming up. You got USC coming to town. You go to Washington. You still got to play Oregon, Ohio State. Like there's definite chances of losses on the schedule if they don't pick things up.
Yeah, I mean, I 100% agree with you. And Ricky from the Facebook page, like we see some of the comments in here already. Austin from the Facebook page says we need a quarterback. Ricky from the Facebook page says, I love Davis Warren. I will never speak horribly about one of our players' names, but I think Orgy needs to start. We need a spark. Look, I think sometimes that can be the tough thing. It's a lot easier when you're a fan, right? But I think it's harder when you cover the team and you're around some of these guys. And I do think that there is a balance between being honest and giving an honest assessment and just being a straight up asshole about the situation. Like I think Davis Warren is a good quarterback. And I think that in another type of offense where some other things are working, I think Davis Warren would be a great game manager type quarterback that could help a team win some football games. I was actually thinking about this. Like, if Davis Warren was the starting quarterback for Michigan last year, I still think that's a 10-plus win team, right? Because all the pieces around him are working. You've got Blake Corum in the backfield. You've got an offensive or an NFL offensive type line. You've got guys like Roman Wilson and Cornelius Johnson. I just think a guy like Davis Warren needs that sort of supporting cast around him. And when you don't have that, yeah, to Ricky's point, I think you need a spark. I think you need somebody who's a playmaker. And so we'll certainly get into that as we get into the conversation here. I just want to go through some of these comments before we miss them. John from the Facebook page, good to have you here. He says, Michigan is going to get stripped in that Big Ten schedule. I hope we get a few breaks, but it's not a good look to have 5 QBs in the program and not one of them is ready to get through that Big Ten schedule. Trent, what do you think about that? I mean, there's been a lot made over what the quarterback options are currently in Ann Arbor. A lot of people are looking at Sharon Moore as if he dropped the ball. What do you think about the current options that are there? And do you think it's as big of an issue as people are making it out to be?
I mean, we really don't know what Michigan has in Jack Tuttle. He's been questionable the past 2 weeks. Like I told you, I was up in the press box looking down on the field, and Tuttle was dressed, but he's standing at the back of the line with the other quarterbacks. He wasn't going through any drills. So clearly he wasn't ready. And heck, I don't know if he's even ready for USC. Like, who knows? But we really don't know what Michigan has in him. We know what Jack Tuttle has been throughout his career, which doesn't scream he's going to go out there and win you games. But, I mean, is he a safer option than Davis Warren? Probably at this point in time. I agree with you. I don't think Davis Warren has been the main issue of this team. However, he has 6 interceptions now in 3 games, which maybe not all of them have been on him, but he's the quarterback and that's not winning football. It's almost unplayable. He's almost unplayable if he can't keep the ball out of harm's way. I mean, again, you have a gauntlet of a schedule coming up, and if you keep turning the ball over, you're not going to win games if you're throwing interceptions 2 or 3 a game. So if he can't do that, I don't think he can play. And then you look at Alex Orji. I don't think the coaching staff has much faith in him throwing the football. He threw it 4 times in the 2 or 3 drives he was in this past Saturday. I mean, if I had to choose right now, I would say roll with Alex Orji and see what he has. But again, is he the answer? I don't know. Like, I don't know.
Yeah, I think it's, it just, to your point, the 6 interceptions, that is unacceptable. By the way, that leads the Big Ten. No other quarterback in the Big Ten has thrown 6 interceptions. And I get it. Sharon Moore has attempted to, over the last 3 weeks, say, okay, well, it's a route here and we're not getting a block there. And I think that there's some truth to that. But ultimately, when you're Davis Warren, like, the decision-making has to be better. You can't be fading away, throwing off your back foot into double coverage and hope that that's going to lead to good things. And so, is it all on Davis Warren? No, but when you throw 6 interceptions, that's a problem. And to your point, Trent, the entire Big Ten conference schedule is still ahead of Michigan. Like, the real meat of this schedule, the USCs, the Washington, Oregon, Ohio State, that's all ahead for Michigan. And you can absolutely not afford to lose the turnover battle and be throwing interceptions left and right. And so I think for that reason alone, you've got to give the next guy in line a shot. And I see some people asking about, what's the status of Jack Tuttle? And it sounded like going into Arkansas State that Jack Tuttle was going to be available. Sharon Moore said he was throwing during practice and he was going to be ready to go. But you're right, Trent. I was down on the field and I was watching Jack Tuttle and the other quarterbacks warming up. Jack Tuttle was not throwing the ball, wasn't even throwing it in warmups. And so I just have a hard time believing that you're going to go from he can't even throw it in warmups to now against USC, he's going to be good to go and able to sling it around the field. I think the only option at this point is to go with Alex Orji and to actually allow him to be a quarterback. Trent, you mentioned it. He came in, I think he had 3 or 4 drives and he threw the ball 4 times. One of them went for a touchdown. You had another couple incompletions in there. One of them was a deep ball to Frederick Moore where the ball was off about 4 yards, and there's some conversation about, well, did Frederick Moore slow up on his route when he was coming out of his break a little bit? Did Alex Orji overthrow it? I think it's probably a combination of the two things, but to me, it wasn't like that egregious. Frederick Moore was wide open, and honestly, on that play, I put it on social media, like, even that incompletion gave me some hope and some confidence that there is some explosiveness somewhere within this offense. And I do think that play is open in large part because the combination of Alex Orji and Khalil Mullings, they were gashing Arkansas State. On Orji's first drive in the game, he came in, led him on a 9-play drive that led to a touchdown, but Khalil Mullings had a 38-yard run on that drive. Alex Orji had a 13-yard run on that drive. They were able to run the ball at will. And so I feel like we're beating a dead horse with the Alex Orji thing, but I've said it a number of times now. When you have a guy like that who is a true dual threat, right? And then you add that with Khalil Mullings on one side or Donovan Edwards on the other side, or hell, Donovan Edwards out in the slot, whatever you want to do with him. Now, if you're a defense and you're faced with that, there's a lot of things you have to try to account for. And Michigan is running the ball, hammering the ball away with those options. And then all of a sudden you see Orji drop back and look for Freddie Moore down the field, and he's wide open. I mean, there wasn't a defender, I think, within 10 yards of Frederick Moore. If that ball is completed, Frederick Moore is in the end zone, and we're having a much different conversation on Monday. So I think overall you're right, Trent. To me, the only option at this point, given the unknown with Jack Tuttle, but let's just say Jack Tuttle was healthy. Don't you think at this point you've got to give Alex Orji like a legitimate look, a legitimate opportunity to be quarterback? He's been healthy throughout the spring. He's been healthy throughout fall camp. He's been in the battle. We've seen that Davis Warren now, he's okay, but the turnovers are an issue. Don't you got to give your QB2 a legitimate opportunity to be the guy? What does it say if you do just choose to go to a Jack Tuttle and continue using Alex Orji in this role?
Then I would say that Alex Orji probably wasn't your backup quarterback. I think I said this before. Michigan, the way they've been using Alex Orji, not allowing him to throw the football, what do they do if Davis Warren gets injured? I think that would speak loudly of how they actually feel about Alex Orji. If Davis Warren goes out there, gets hurt, who does Michigan insert as the quarterback, and how do they operate the offense? Because the way that Kirk Campbell is calling plays right now with Alex Orji, you wouldn't think they'd be throwing the football much with him at quarterback. So who is actually that backup quarterback? I guess is kind of my main question. I mean, I believe it's Alex Orji, but the way that they operate things with him in there, it kind of makes you question how they actually feel about him. But the way the Michigan offense moved the ball with Orji's presence there, the few drives, I think you got to give him a look on Saturday against USC. I think he should be the first quarterback out. Obviously, if he goes out there and plays poorly, you got to put Davis Warren back in the game, or if Jack Tuttle is healthy, I guess you probably try him too. But just his element that he brings to this offense, teams have to watch for the run. They have to watch for the read option. And the dude threw the ball pretty far down the field. He does have an arm on him. He has a cannon. And if he can just connect on one or two of those, it's going to make the defense have to watch out for the pass as well.
There's no question about it. And that's why it sucks that it wasn't a completion, because it was so damn close. And I think it just changes the entire conversation. And Ricky, to your point, Trent, he says his deep ball was a good ball. I think the wide receiver slowed down coming out of his break. I know that Jake Butt said that on the broadcast as well. And so, but here's the other thing. Like, Michigan is not a team that is dropping back and throwing the ball deep often and on a fairly regular basis. And so you're going to get 2 or 3 opportunities to do that in a game in this Michigan offense. And it just becomes even more critical that you have to capitalize on those things. But I also think the difference is, Michigan does not have a guy, unless it's a Marion Walker. And we saw him on the field against Arkansas State. He did get open, but Davis Warren was forced out of the pocket and then had to do something else. But I don't know that Michigan has a wide receiver on this roster that is a true 50-50 guy, where you can throw it up, you can afford to be a little bit short, and that guy's going to go plug it out of the air. Colston Loveland sort of fits that mold, but it seems to me they're not really trying to hit Colston Loveland deep too often. It's more of like, get him in a crossing route, get him in the flat, get him somewhere near the quarterback where it's going to be an easy A to B completion. That seems to be how they want to use Colston Loveland. But I just don't know who the deep threat is. And so whether you're Davis Warren or you're Alex Orji, you drop back, you got to put something on the ball. You got to lead your wide receiver, and it's got to be on the mark. And you're going to have one or two opportunities to do that on a Saturday, and you've got to be good every single time. And so I've seen people push back on this idea that, well, you don't need a rhythm as a quarterback. Like, that's a ball that Orji should be able to hit. Trent, how difficult do you think it is when you stand on the sideline for a majority of the game, and when you do come in, you're handing it off, and then, you got to hit the ball deep to Frederick Moore? Like, do you think there's something to be said for developing a rhythm and letting a guy sling it around? It seemed like they were trying to get Davis Warren into a rhythm for a good chunk of the season. He had over 70 attempts through 3 weeks. How much do you think what we've seen from Orji in terms of the misses, right? He had a bad miss against Fresno State. We saw that on the rollout. How much of that do you think is attributed to the fact that the guy just doesn't have the opportunity to get into a rhythm in the game?
I mean, I'm not a quarterback. I don't play quarterback.
You're a quarterback. You've got your uniform on right now. I know you just came in from the practice facility.
I'm really good on NCAA college football 25. I'm really good. So I have a little bit of an idea, like I guess. But no, I mean, I think so. And we've talked about this before. Alex Orji, he knows what people say about him. He knows how he's using the offense. When he gets that chance, it's got to be in his head that he's got to connect on it. And I'm guessing he's probably putting a little bit of pressure on himself that, hey, I've got to get this ball. I got to get it there, and it has to look good. And if that's the case, obviously that's not going to help him if he's overthinking about it, if he's overthinking it. And then not getting the opportunities, you don't have much of a sample size to go off of either. So if he is throwing balls over the head of Fred Moore, or the ball's going in the dirt type of situation, that's kind of how fans and the coaches are going to view him. Like, he's not connecting when he gets the chances. And unfortunately, that is the reality of college football or the NFL. When you are given the chance, you have to do something with it, or you're not going to get those chances anymore. And the good thing for Orji is that Michigan doesn't have that elite quarterback play where I think that he can continue to get those chances.
I mean, I agree with you. Jacob from the Facebook page, he says he's not a dual threat if he can't throw the ball well. And I mean, Jacob, there's a lot of people that agree with you out there. And my only pushback on that is we don't know, right? We think the coaches know because they see him in practice. But even then, like, you're not really seeing what the guy looks like on game day. And I get it. Like, you got to be accurate in practice, and you've got to show the right things in order to be the guy on Saturdays. But can we really base Alex Orji on 7 career throws over 3 years, on 6 throws this season? And what I also find interesting, Trent, is that, and this happened yesterday, where, somebody sent me a link to the video of that pass against Fresno State that went in the dirt. And they were like, look, this is the reason why Alex Orji is not the starting quarterback at Michigan. And I'm like, okay, that was a bad throw. I'll give that to you. But are we just going to ignore like 2 touchdown passes? I get it. They weren't from 30 and 40 yards out. He didn't have to like thread the needle on them, but like on 6 attempts, we can't just point to one bad ball and then completely ignore 2 touchdown passes. Alex Orji has as many touchdown passes on 6 attempts as Davis Warren has on over 70. And so I think we need to be aware of that. And I don't know, can Alex Orji throw the ball consistently? Can he put the ball where it needs to be? We saw a little bit of it during the spring game, but I just think you need to give this guy, I mean, hell, if you're not going to give him a full game, give him a full half, but allow him to play quarterback. Trent, you and I were texting when Alex Orji came into the game, and I was like, they might as well just rip his arms off. He doesn't even need arms when he goes out there because he's not doing anything with it. And it's odd because it was working and Michigan was moving the ball, but my God, like, I don't know what it is, what they're seeing in practice, but they do not want to let him step back and throw the ball. But then all of a sudden he drops back and he throws it 50 yards down the field to Frederick Moore, and it's damn near a completion. And so I just think it's this really weird thing with him where he's a tremendous athlete with his legs. You know what he has there. But I don't understand for the life of me why they're not giving this guy the opportunity to throw it around a little bit more. You had a lead against Arkansas State. I heard Jake Butt even saying it on the broadcast. It was a great opportunity to just let Alex Orji, like, regardless of what you're going to do with him moving forward, just let him throw the ball around a little bit more. Let him gain that confidence. Let him see those completions happen. And Michigan just really didn't seem have much interest in doing that. And so I think you make a good point, Trent. If Davis Warren goes down and he gets injured, what do you do? Where is your backup? And then what does this Michigan offense look like from there? I think that is a huge question mark. But this week is going to be big, right? This week is going to be. Go ahead.
So, yeah, I saw someone put in the comments, Alex Orji is starting per Sharon Moore.
So there we go. So now we have Alex Orji starting quarterback against USC to open up Big Ten conference play. I think that's phenomenal. I think that it's exactly what this offense needed. And I think that's what I've been clamoring for, is that it just seems to me that this Michigan offense, a lot of times it looks like it's stuck in the mud, right? Like it can't get out of its own way. And Davis Warren is very much a system quarterback. He's very much a game manager, but it's very hard to be a game manager when there's not much happening around you. And so I think to open things up, you need a guy who's more dynamic. You need a true playmaker at that position where when things break down, they can get out of the pocket and they can create and they can make a defense second guess themselves. To me, that's Alex Orji. We will see how good he is through the air, but with him being named the starting quarterback, he's going to have to get some opportunities to throw the ball, and I'm excited. I think the possibilities for this offense with him behind center, the ceiling is much higher than with Davis Warren. But I mean, that's breaking news coming in here, Trent. I mean, what are your thoughts on now? It's settled. Now it's established. Number 10 starting against USC. Does that give you more confidence against number 11 USC, or do you still have the same skepticism about this offense that you had before that?
No, I think it's the right move. But what I think is frustrating for probably Alex Orji and then definitely the fan base, you didn't give the guy many opportunities to throw the football against Arkansas State. So if that was your plan, I'm guessing that wasn't the plan. But maybe after that third interception that Davis Warren threw on Saturday, and Sharon Moore's like, hey, look, we're going to go with Alex Orji. It had to have been in the back of his mind, like, okay, our starter has thrown 6 interceptions now in 3 games. We're gonna let Alex Orji go in there and see what he can do. But then you let him throw 4 times. That's it, 4 times. I think that there's a potential of possibly letting this guy fail because he's not getting the opportunities that he should have had by now to throw the football. And you're not playing an Arkansas State team. You're playing USC that is much, much improved from last season defensively. With USC, nobody was thinking that their offense would be bad. They've had a great offense since Lincoln Riley's been there. The defense has been the issue, and that defense looks much improved from the last couple years. And that's what Alex Orji's going against. So hopefully that the game plan and practice this week, they give him that opportunity that he needs.
Yeah, and I think that's where, because I've seen a lot of people, they're placing some blame on Sharon Moore for certain things that I just don't think are Sharon Moore's fault. Like when you look at the current quarterback situation in Ann Arbor as it is, that is not on Sharon Moore. That is on Jim Harbaugh. That's Jim Harbaugh's room that Sharon Moore is working with. Now, where it does fall on Sharon Moore's shoulders and Kurt Campbell is how do you utilize what you have there? And I would be in agreement with you, Trent, that the first 3 weeks, like you could have given Alex Orji more of an opportunity to just see those completions happen, right? The same opportunity that you gave Davis Warren. And now you're making this move with a guy who maybe has 10 or 15 completions under his belt versus what is he at now? 3 completions on the year, right? On 6 attempts.
And 2 of them are
touchdowns.
Yeah.
So, yeah, 100%. I feel like that could have and probably should have been managed a little bit better and just let the guy throw the ball. And I think that's been one of the most puzzling aspects of it. Like, here we are on Monday. Alex Orji has been named the starter against USC, number 11 USC, to open up conference play. This is a big game. And here's a guy coming in that, like, he's your number 2 clearly on the depth chart, and you haven't allowed him to throw the ball through the first 3 weeks. So, I believe in Alex Orji. I think I've made that clear all throughout the offseason. I thought he was the guy. I thought he should be the guy. And then after 3 weeks and sort of looking at the way this offense looks, to me, it just became even more clear. Like, you need a guy back there who can make shit happen. And I just think Alex Orji is that guy. So I'm really excited for that. That news kind of throws a wrench into part of the show because I was going to advocate for that and sort of, the article I put out last night, why you need to make the move to Alex Orji. But maybe Sharon Moore was reading. That's probably what happens, right? We see it all the time. Sharon Moore hops on, opens up the laptop. He's like, what does Chris have to say about what I should do? And then he makes a decision from there. So I'll take some of the credit for that. Keeping that in mind, and I think I asked you this to open the show, but we know that there's some question marks with this Michigan football team, even after 3 weeks. We know some things that, you got to figure some things out. But Trent, I'm going to ask you, what do we know for sure after 3 weeks? What do we know for sure about this Michigan football team right now?
Well, I would say that I think we knew this, but even more so after week 3, that once again, running the football is going to be Michigan's identity. And I think they're either going to win games by doing it or they're going to lose games by doing it. Because until Davis Warren can take care of the football, but now it's going to be Alex Orji, and we really don't know what Michigan has with Alex Orji at quarterback. Maybe he goes out there and slings the ball around, but I'm guessing that they're still going to be somewhat safe using him and trying to implement more of that read option and so on and so on. But Clell Mullings, he's been great. Donovan Edwards, he had his best game of the year against Arkansas State. You can say whatever you want about Arkansas State's defense. Obviously, they weren't very good going into the game. They're probably not very good either. But Michigan finally did what it needed to do against an opponent like that. Fresno State, solid team, solid Mountain West team. Michigan did not dominate them on the line of scrimmage. The run game didn't look very good against Fresno State until late in the game when Fresno State got tired. But pretty much from the get-go, Michigan did what it wanted to do, whatever it wanted to do on the ground. Clell Mullings, Donovan Edwards did a great job. And then defensively, I'm still not certain about the secondary, but I know that Will Johnson's good. Like, I know that he's good. He did get picked on a few times.
Do you know that? Because there are some people who after 3 weeks are like, Will Johnson, he ain't it. He ain't the guy, which is, again, a little bit insane to me. I know that defensive, Arkansas State was testing him a little bit. It wasn't that he looked bad. And I mean, this guy wants to make plays on the ball, but so you still think Will Johnson, first round guy, right?
Put it this way. I'm much more confident. It's crazy for me to say this. I'm much more confident in Will Johnson's play than I am for the interior defensive line, which is crazy to say because you have Mason Graham and Kenneth Grant there. But just looking at the play, Will Johnson is the best player on this defense. And I don't even think it's overly close right now because you have a lot of question marks surrounding guys that you shouldn't have question marks about. And even with Jayshon Barham, did you see the play in the first quarter? He had an open lane for a blitz for a sack, and he takes out the left tackle when there was already a guy there. And he just whiffed going at the quarterback for what? I mean, I don't know what he was doing. I don't know what the assignment was there, but it definitely looked weird.
Yeah. I listen, when it comes to this defense, it's not. The offense, I think, might be a little bit of a different story. But when it comes to the defense, there's no question to me that there's not a talent issue. It's just a mentality issue. It's can you stay on assignment? Do you have discipline to be as effective as you can possibly be? Part of that is on the roster. Part of that's on Wink Martindale. It's not just one or the other. But yeah, I would agree with you in your assessment about Will Johnson being one of the top players. But like I said, there's people already calling for Sharon Moore to be fired. There's people questioning whether or not Will Johnson's as good as everybody thought. I just think those two things are ridiculous. But Trent, here's what I know for sure about this team after 3 weeks. I know, and we know this because now we have a change at quarterback, but Michigan's pass offense is unacceptable. Through 3 weeks, and look, we know that Michigan is a ground and pound. They want to run the ball. I understand that. But through 3 weeks, the Michigan offense ranks 121st nationally in pass offense. 121st nationally in pass offense. Trent, that's good for dead last in the Big Ten Conference. The Michigan Wolverines, reigning national champions, 3-time Big Ten champions, through 3 weeks have the worst passing offense in the conference. I don't care if you're a ground and pound team. There is not a scenario in the world where that is acceptable for this Michigan offense. And I think that's why you're seeing the change at quarterback, because that just cannot happen moving forward. I think on the defensive side of the ball, The rush defense is good. Michigan's actually 15th nationally in rush defense, which is good for 5th in the Big Ten. But the pass defense is an issue. Michigan is currently 90th nationally in pass defense. They're 16th in the Big Ten. Only UCLA and Maryland are worse than Michigan in pass defense. And when you talk about the secondary, you've got Will Johnson out there. You've got Zeke Berry. You've got Makari Page. Yeah, is there some work to do with Jair Hill? Yeah, but you've got Amir Hall. You've got some veterans that you can sort of work around. Like, Michigan should have some answers there. Once again, Michigan, even if you're trying to work some things out, should not be one of the worst in the Big Ten against the pass. The concern I have there, Trent, is guess who has the best passing offense in the Big Ten Conference?
USC.
Any guesses? USC, number 1 in the Big Ten in passing offense. So you have the Michigan Wolverines, who are one of the worst teams in the Big Ten Conference against the pass, going up against USC, who's the best team in the Big Ten Conference. They're actually top 10 nationally, number 7, if I'm not mistaken. So that's going to be something that I think is going to be a determining factor in this game. Can this Michigan defense change the tide against the pass? Can they shut that down? We know that they're good against the run, one of the top defenses in the country against the run, but they are awful against the pass. And then third down defense. We know for sure that third down defense is an issue for this Michigan defense, which I am puzzled by. These guys just can't seem to get off the field on third down. They are... Where is it at? Third down defense. Any guess where Michigan ranks out of 133 teams on third down defense?
Well, I mean, it definitely improved on Saturday outside of the first drive. And then when the
better
came in, I would guess they're probably out of 130. They were terrible the first 2 weeks.
Out of 133.
Probably 98.
You'd be wrong, Trent. They are 106th nationally and are 16th in the Big Ten Conference in third down defense. They are giving up 42% on third down defense opportunities. So like those things, when you combine it with being one of the worst against the pass, you're giving up a ton of third downs. Like, those are issues now through 3 weeks that are concerning. I think you could accept it. Like, week 1, okay, you got to knock off the rust. Week 2, Texas is really good offensively, number 1 team in the nation according to the AP poll. But then you come out against Arkansas State and you give up like another 225 through the air. I get a lot happen in garbage time, but like, this Michigan defense is becoming a unit that just gives up a lot of plays and a lot of yards through the air, and that can't happen. And so I think overall, the thing that I've come to realize about this Michigan team over the last 3 weeks is that it is clearly not the 2023 team. And anything that you had expected, any preconceived notions you had about who or what this team would be coming into the season, you got to throw all that out. This is an entirely new year. Some are the same faces, a lot of new faces, but a completely different team. The offense has a long ways to go before it's even going to be. I mean, I'm just not even sure that Alex Orji is enough of a change, but I think it's a step in the right direction. But, play calling, how you're utilizing your guys. There's a lot of things that need to happen offensively to get this team to where it needs to be. And then the one thing that we thought we would be able to rely on with Michigan, the defense, struggling in a lot of key areas, giving up too many plays through the air, and then not able to get off the field on third down. I just think that those are two issues, two really big issues. And then again, USC coming to town, the top passing offense in the conference and one of the best in the country. So we know that those are things that are issues with Michigan that we know for sure. I think the question is, how do you solve it moving forward? What do you do? How do you fix it, Trent? With some of those concerns that you have and some of the issues that you have, what are the fixes? We've seen Sharon Moore take a step in the right direction, right? We've got Sharon Moore coming in, you got Alex Orji coming in. He's going to start against USC. How do you fix some of these other things that you see with this Michigan team, whether it's offensively or defensively?
Well, I mean, I kind of want to focus on the defense because offensively, I think Sharon Moore did the right thing. I think he made the change that everybody, I'm assuming, wanted to see. And then it just comes down to execution and play calling. And I'm not an X's and O's guy. I don't know the ins and outs of that. But Kurt Campbell's got to do a good job of putting Orji in the right position, letting him get a rhythm, getting into the game and making plays. Defensively, though, I think I've seen enough to make to put my stamp on it that Amir Hall should be starting opposite of Will Johnson. I think the past 2 games, he's performed much better than Jair Hill has. I think while I think Hill has a lot of potential and has a high ceiling, I think that Amir Hall, he's a veteran. He was an FCS All-American last season at Albany. He's just made plays. He's made veteran plays out there. This past game, he broke up, I think, two pass attempts. One was in the end zone. He's just making plays. He's tackling at a higher level than Hill. And I think that he should be that number 2. Continue to sprinkle in Jair as needed. He can be your cornerback 3. But I think that's where what needs to be fixed right away in the secondary. And then I kind of want to talk about Wink Martindale a little bit. I know he's getting the brunt of the blame because he's the defensive coordinator, and I think that's fair. However, he plays zone. He'll play zone. Michigan gets picked apart in the secondary, primarily because of the role players. Then you blitz, try to get pressure on the quarterback. Doesn't get home. Once again, gets picked apart because of Jair Hill or whoever might be back there at that time. So I feel like it's kind of a lose-lose situation. If your players aren't making the plays that they're supposed to, especially when you have elite talent on this defense and they're not beating their man, what do you do in that situation? I mean, I realize you got to keep scheming and making changes, but if nothing's working, like, what do you do? Like, at what point in time do you say that your star players are not living up to the billing? Because through 3 games, I fully think that's what's going on. I don't think that the guys that were making plays in 2023 are doing the same thing in 2024. And I understand new defensive coordinator, new defensive line coach, etc. But at the same time, Mason Graham doesn't look like Mason Graham. Kenneth Grant doesn't look like Kenneth Grant. And you can change your plays all you want, but if they're not winning their assignment, it kind of falls on the players too.
I think it's fair. I think that's fair. I mean, everybody has to do their part in it. And Devin from the Facebook page, I agree with you. To be fair, Arkansas State quarterback was freshman of the year in the Sun Belt. He was actually pretty legit. I thought the same thing. I thought Jalen Rayner was a really good quarterback. And I was actually, as I was watching it afterwards, I thought, man, what would a guy like Jalen Rayner be able to do with this Michigan offense? Like another guy who can roll out sort of a playmaker type thing. So, yeah, I mean, I'm not taking anything away from him. I think that he's a solid quarterback, and he obviously made things difficult for Michigan. I think he didn't throw a touchdown. What do you have, 1 or 2 interceptions on the afternoon? And then the backup came in and threw a couple garbage time touchdowns. But Michigan defense was pretty good in terms of keeping them out of the end zone through the air, but they were still able to move the ball. And it's those quick hitters, man. Like, offenses know how to get after this Michigan defense, which is you can't spend too much time in the pocket. You've got to have quick hitters. And if you can do that, you can catch them out of position and you can move the ball down the field. That's how Fresno State did it. That's how Quinn Ewers in Texas did it. And that's how Arkansas State did it as well. But yeah, he's a solid quarterback. Let's see. Yes, Riley, we saw that. And for those who are joining late, Sherrone Moore did announce that Alex Orji is going to be starting against USC, so very excited about that. Old Timer from the YouTube page says, Orji can throw. He threw 28 touchdown passes his senior year of high school. He needs some more live reps to get confidence, and he needs positive vibes and encouragement. I would agree with all of that. I mean, reps are really the only thing that are going to take you from where you are to where you need to be. Trent, did you mention this? I think you did, right? When you said Amir Hall needs to start. Jair Hill. There's a lot of people looking at Jair Hill. He's been out of position a couple times now. Obviously, you like the upside there, and he's getting valuable reps right now, and you think it's going to pay off long term, but you think this is a move that needs to happen ASAP.
Yeah, absolutely. I think especially just tackling. Michigan, for whatever reason, they're not a great tackling team right now, and that's been brought up a few times after the game by the players themselves, that they got to do a better job just tackling. Jair Hill is actually one of the worst graded tacklers on the team right now, where Amir Hall, he's one of the best. He's making the open field tackles when he needs to. He's deflecting passes when they come his way. He's a veteran, and I think that's what Michigan needs right now, is that veteran presence on the opposite of Will Johnson.
I agree. And I like this question from CJ Frazier. He says, how much do you think it hurt this team not having the traditional 4 cupcake games to start the season? We talked about that heading into the year, the big time matchup with Texas week 2. In hindsight, do you think that matchup with Texas will prove to be more beneficial, or would you have preferred to see more of the just give me the cupcake slate out of the gate so that we can get things figured out before we get to USC?
Yeah, I think it depends on the team. I think this Michigan team this year could have used that first three games that are not very good. I think it would have given more opportunities, build confidence. Now, if you look at the 2023 Michigan Wolverines, I don't think it would have mattered who they played week 1, 2, or 3 last year. I think that team was a team on a mission. They had too much talent. They had leadership. They had a great culture about themselves, where I would have put that team up against any team right away. This year, though, yeah, I think it would have helped them tremendously if you would have started off with three teams that you know you're going to win against, so you can build confidence, especially even with the coaching staff. You have a new coaching staff. Get them into a little bit of a rhythm as well. I think it would have paid off tremendously for this team.
I think that's one way to look at it. I think the way that when I read this question, the way that I looked at it and the way that I still view it is this, that I think under normal circumstances, you would like to have the non-conference games, especially with the expanded Big Ten, because now you've got USC, now you've got Oregon, you still got to deal with Ohio State. You got to go on the road to Washington. Like, you would prefer to have a few games where you can get up to speed. But considering how successful this Michigan team has been over the last 3 seasons, everything that you lost during the offseason, I'm glad they got Texas in week 2. And to be honest, I'm glad they got slapped around a little bit. And we talked about this after the game, that I feel like it knocked a lot of that shine off of, okay, this is the reigning national champions. These guys are this, these guys are that. That was a reality check for everybody. That was a reality check for Sharon Moore, reality check for the Michigan Wolverines roster, reality check for the fan base. I think that game was the reset button to say, look, this is not 2023. JJ McCarthy is not here. Blake Corum is not here. Mike Sainer still is not here. Jesse Minter is not here. None of what happened last year is going to have an impact on this year. It is going to be up to this staff and this roster to get shit done. And I think that was what the Texas game really did. So, to be honest, if I had to choose between what's occurred through the first 3 weeks of the season or play 3 cupcakes and then go into USC, I'd rather lose the non-conference game early, figure out where you're at and how far you got to be or how far you got to go to get to where you want to be, and then be ready to compete against a USC where that conference game is going to matter. And I said this after the Texas loss. Every single thing that Michigan wants to accomplish is still on the table this year. You want to go play for a conference championship? You got to win the conference games. You want to be in the 12-team playoff? You got to do well within conference play. And Michigan still has a shot to do all of that. But now they have the knowledge of, like, we're not as good as we thought we might be, and we've got to improve in some areas. So now you're moving some pieces around, right? You're putting Alex Orji in a position to be a starter. Maybe we'll see, Donovan Edwards used a little more, I guess, in a dynamic way where you get him in the slot or you're using him in the passing game or maybe you're giving him an opportunity on special teams. I also think Khalil Mullings, it's clear to me, for as much as I love Donovan Edwards as a person and what I think he's capable of as a running back, the numbers are what the numbers are. And you can't just, because you love a guy like Donovan Edwards and everything he's meant to this program and done for this program, disregard what Khalil Mullings has been able to do on the field. Mullings and Edwards both have 36 carries on the season through 3 weeks, and Mullings has been far more productive on the ground. He's averaging like 7.3 yards per carry. He's moving the pile. How much do you think? So we're talking about things that can improve this offense potentially moving forward. Sharon Moore going to make the move to Alex Orji. In terms of the running backs, how would you utilize Khalil Mullings and Donovan Edwards moving forward?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I thought, so before we get into that, we already discussed how they both had their best games. Khalil Mullings, best of his career. Edwards looked better than he has all season so far. I felt like Dono, he got off to that slow start once again, but once Khalil broke out, he did his thing. I thought Dono ran harder than he's ever ran, ever that I've seen him. He was carrying tacklers 1 or 2 yards. He was making guys miss. He wasn't going down on first contact. That's something we haven't seen from Donovan Edwards very often. And I mean, that was very nice to see. But what you want to see is continue to use Khalil Mullings the same way that he's been used. And then Dono, you gotta do some different things with Dono, right? He's an athlete. You want to get him the ball in different ways. go off tackles, get to the edge. I don't think we see that nearly enough. The dude can catch the football. I think that was what I was most disappointed in. They were talking all week long, the coaches were, how you got to get the ball into Dono's hands, get him acclimated back into the passing game. He had one catch for 11 yards. And especially when you don't have Tyler Morris playing, Colston Loveland goes down. I think you could use Dono in so many different ways, and using him in the passing game will just open up the offense even more. And I think,
Trent, you got to save the playbook, right? You can't show everything. Do you think there's anything to that, you don't want to show what you're fully capable of? Or do you think what we've seen through 3 weeks is pretty indicative of just what Michigan is offensively?
No, I think, they're having a new quarterback, right? So I think that's going to change a little bit possibly going forward. But no, I think what we've seen through 3 weeks, that's Michigan. That's Michigan football, and that's what they're going to be all season long until whether it was Davis Warren could show that he can open it up a little bit, get the ball downfield, not turn it over, whether Alex Orji can complete passes down the field as well, open it up that way. I think that's just how Michigan football is going to operate all season long. So then it's just changing a little bit, right? Like, yeah, again, get Dono to the edge, off tackle, get him implemented into the passing game. Just do a little bit of different things like that, and then continue to use Kalel Mullings as your bruising back up the middle.
Agreed with you, Jacob. If you might be joining late, Warren is not going to start instead of Orji. Sharon Moore announced that Alex Orji is going to start against USC. He announced that during his press conference today. And Devin Wright from the Facebook page, don't say shit like this because I didn't read. This isn't true, right? I mean, Trent, you can look this up really quick. Devin says, "Did I read right that Loveland is out for the season with a separated shoulder?" No, I don't think that's.
No, Sharon Moore said today that there's no update on Colston Loveland, that there was just nothing provided.
Yeah, so I'm not sure where you can't just type things like that. That's going to have everybody freaking out. My gut's telling me that Colston Loveland will be ready to go next weekend, hopefully against USC. I mean, dude, you need, especially with Alex Orji getting the start, you need Colston Loveland in the game. Marlon Klein looks pretty damn good as well, though. I mean, I think that there are some options with this Michigan offense to where they can get to where they need to be. And I feel the same way defensively, right? Like they're not good in pass defense, but I think that there's some things that they could do to get to where they need to be. I don't think this defense is so far off to where they can't still become one of the more elite defensive units in the country. And I feel that same way about the offense. And I think the last point I'll make about the offense. So we talked about you got to make Alex Orji the starting quarterback. Well, Sharon Moore is going to do that. We talked about you got to lean on Kalel Mullings a little bit more in the rushing game because he's earned that. I think that we'll see that moving forward. And my hope is that we'll see Kirk Campbell dip into his bag of tricks and say, look, Donovan Edwards is an incredible athlete. He's one of the top weapons we have offensively. Is he still going to be a part of the running game? Yes, absolutely. Like that should still be a part of what he brings to the table. But you got to find other ways to utilize him. We know he can catch the ball. We know hell, he can throw the ball 70 yards if need be. There has to be a better way to utilize a guy like Donovan Edwards so that he's making more of an impact offensively. And I think the last thing that I'll say about the offense is that Trent, they have been doing this rotation up front on the offensive line between Dominic Giudice and Greg Crippen. To me, you've done this now for 3 weeks. That needs to be put to bed. You've got to end that, and you've got to settle on a guy. For me, I think the guy is Greg Crippen. But what do you think about this ongoing rotation at the center position of all positions? Thoughts on that, and how would you decide that moving forward?
Yeah, after the game, I think both players played 34 snaps each against Arkansas State. After the game, Sharon Moore said they're both practicing at an elite level. They both should have the opportunity to play. I don't like that. Go with the guy and stick with him. Yep. There's got to be after the game too. Josh Preeb, left guard, he was available to talk, and somebody asked him, "What changes with you guys when they keep rotating centers?" And of course, he's not going to say anything negative, but he was like, "No, nothing changes at all. They both play the same exact way." I don't buy that though. I mean, there's got to be some things that change when you have different centers going into the game. And then today I just saw that Sharon Moore was asked about that competition, and he said it's still ongoing, that they're both playing well, and that Dom actually graded out better than Greg Crippen, which kind of shocks me because I thought the offense moved better when Greg Crippen was in. That's when they went down 2 consecutive drives. They had long drives with Greg Crippen, and then they reinserted Dom Giudice. But going back to your point, they got to make a decision and stick with it. Greg Crippen's been the backup center now 2 straight years. He's a former high 4-star recruit from IMG Academy, played with JJ. The dude has the billing to be the guy, and it just kind of shocks me that he's not the guy. And I just think that the offense moves the ball more efficiently. They block better pass protection outside of Evan Link on right tackle. I think that they look better when he's in there, and he should be the guy.
I 100% agree. And I just think it's not like the defensive line where you want to be able to rotate guys in and out all the time. Like your offensive line, your starting unit, like that unit is close knit. And I think that if all things are equal and these guys continue to be neck and neck, then to me, that's even more of a reason, like just make a damn decision. Then like stop rotating them in and out. And you know that if Greg Crippen gets hurt, you've got Dom on the sideline and you're going to come in and not miss a step, right? Like there is some value to that, but I just don't like the constant rotation, especially at the center position. And you know, you're going to have Alex Orji starting, making his first start against USC. It's going to be a big time environment. Once again, I think you just need to have some continuity there at the center position. And so I think those are the 4 things really that I would do with this offense to try to jumpstart it. And it sounds like some of that's happening. Start Alex Orji. We know that's going to happen. Lean on Khalil Mullings in the rushing attack. Allow him to do what he does best. And then find other ways to utilize Donovan Edwards so that he's getting in the open field and he's having those big electric plays that, quite honestly, this Michigan offense is going to need from him if they're going to hope to be successful in this Big Ten schedule. And then stop rotating at the center position. If both guys look good, if both guys are performing well, settle on one guy and know that you've got a guy on the sideline who can come in if need be, and you won't miss a step. I think that those are the moves that need to be made. I think that I had my vision of how I thought this USC game was going to go and how I was going to predict it. I'm not going to go into my predictions here, but I'll be honest, this move at quarterback, it's got me thinking twice. And we had the conversation about, like, we're just not going to go a certain way on this until Michigan proves that they're going to be a little bit different on the field offensively. And they might be. So I'm going to have to put some thought into this, Trent. We're going to have to think a little bit more about this. We will be back on Wednesday for Fan-Led Wednesday. Here's the switch for Fan-Led Wednesday for this week. We normally do it at 6 p.m. We are going to hold Fan-Led Wednesday at noon on Wednesday. So noon on Wednesday, we'll go live. We'll take your questions. We'll take your comments. You guys guide the show. Whatever it is you want to talk about. You still want to revisit Arkansas State? Let's chat about it. You want to talk USC? Let's talk about that. You want to talk position groups? Let's talk about that. You guys will run the show. Until then, Trent, as always, appreciate your time on a Monday afternoon. It's good to be back into the thick of it, right? Quarter of the way through the season already. Quarter of the way through the regular season, 3 games under the belt. Everybody take a deep breath. Big game coming up this weekend with the stripe out. Alex Orji behind center. USC coming to town, stripe out in the big house.
Orji for 300 yards through the air. Bank it. Bet all your money on it. Go to the betting sites, bet all your money on it.
I'll be such an asshole on all apps if that happens. Can't wait for it, but we'll be back Wednesday before that. Fan-Led Wednesday at noon. We'll see you then.